that we left off on page 23.
Okay.
All right.
23?
All right. Welcome to the Vermont House Appropriations Committee. It is Monday, February 27th, 2023. The quarter of two, committee at conference had met this morning, and right now we're going to hear from the administrations from finance and management to walk us through the rest of the language. And we left off at page 23 at E111.1. Just if you're following along.
Okay. Adam Gresham, Commissioner of Finance and Management. Good afternoon, everyone.
Hello.
And that's a great place to pick up.
Yeah.
Looking through the language document, and keep in mind, historically, what we've done is we've presented, the language to you, and we've annotated parts that are more involved with kind of finance and management and numbers, and we've left it to the agencies and departments of jurisdiction to explain in greater detail what some of these sections mean. So I'm sure that you will have the other departments and agencies in to explain. So I thought what I would do, picking up at E111.1 is just kind of highlight some sections that are a little different or worthy of note, starting with on page 23, the codification of the Tax Computer Modernization Fund. So I suspect, I don't know if you've spoken with tax yet, but I suspect that they will speak about this at length during their presentation. But the Computer Modernization Fund was created when they purchased and installed the VTAX system. And this was the mechanism they used to help pay for the system and to help maintain and upgrade the system. But it has been session law as opposed to codification. So what this does is it codifies the Computer Modernization Fund. As well, it changes the payment method from the fund. Heretofore, money went into that fund, 2% of money collected from uncollectibles, I guess is the best way to put it. People who don't pay whatever is due, predominantly people who make mistakes and the like. So that amount that was enabled substantially, or certainly eased substantially when they put in VTAX, a portion of that amount was directed to the fund to help pay for VTAX and help maintain it. So that is, tax here is asking to change how they direct money to that fund. That is what you see in E111.1 and E111.2.
5 million, but if it's 2 months, we just marked it. Got that other.
In addition, in E111.3, they also ask to take a share of the local option tax to help pay for an upgrade of the what they call the SALIB system.
FY24 2.5 money.
So that is in the E111 and E112 area. Before leaving the E100s, I did want to point to one omission that is not in the language. And, unfortunately, the folks, myself and Hardy are cursed with being humans, and occasionally we make errors. One error that we had in this document is we did not include a change in the sunset provision. Some of you may know that when the Office of Racial Equity was
population is fine to be done in May, end of May, right?
Sorry?
I've agreed to.
Sorry, Adam, we just,
I can't.
That's okay.
yeah, we can't hear.
Out the window in your body. Sorry.
Yeah, look out the window, sorry.
Can you say that again?
Maybe we
We're
can
having
put her
trouble
closer
hearing.
or something.
Okay.
Okay. Can you hear me
The
okay?
Office of Racial Equity
It
and
wasn't you, it was a background conversation.
repeal
Oh,
over, okay, yeah, so go ahead.
So when the Office of Racial Equity and the Executive Director of Racial Equity, Susanna Davis, when that was created, it was in 2018 special session. I think it was Act 9. They created the office, they created the position. That was sunset at the end of next year. It would have been at the end of fiscal 24. And we intended to include in this budget a elimination of the sunset, which we got already and simply dropped the ball. We never put it in the document. So, Madam Chair, I believe Joint Fiscal may have spoken with you about this.
Yes.
But our intention was not to sunset that office. I'm sorry?
Oh, sorry, there's, anyway, too many things going on. So, do we have language or can we get language from you, or are we going to get it from Joint Fiscal to repeal the repeal? But I think
We submitted language to Joint Fiscal a few days ago. Sarah Clark,
Okay.
I think she'll be in touch. It's easy enough. You just have to repeal Section 8 of Act 9 of 2018. But anyway, I did want to say that our intention was to put that in the budget document we submitted to you in the original language, and we simply dropped the ball.
Yeah, that's fine. It's a good catch. Glad we caught it now and not in June of 2024.
So skipping ahead to E.
Madam Chair, could I ask a question?
Oh, yes, certainly.
Hi, everyone. Adam, is the 0.21% of total revenue now?
That's correct.
Instead of the 2%, is that intended, sort of calculated to produce about the same amount? Or are we seeing a reduction or an increase in the total projected amounts coming to this fund?
You will see an increase, and that's a good question. So it was 2% of what I would call compliance revenue.
Right. Yeah.
Now it is 0.002% of overall revenue, which on a net basis is a little over $2 million of extra revenue that will allow them to do what they need to do. This fund has been running short. It's been slowly but surely drying up. So this will provide them a regular revenue source, which they believe will provide enough to maintain the system and nothing else.
No, and then I talked to her this morning and I forgot to mention it, and then we sent her a text.
So moving on to E233, I just wanted to point out that comports with a $10 million request or proposal to go to the Public Service Department for continuing to build out our mobile wireless network statewide. And there is the verbiage that will provide some guideposts for that in Public Service Department.
Sorry, Adam, what's that? I hear you.
E233.
Okay.
E233, so we've skipped over a bunch of these other things.
And to see if that actually makes it up to.
He skipped over all the standard language, Rob.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm kind of picking and choosing. I'm happy to, if
Okay.
you want to go line by line, I can do
No,
that too.
I'm catching on, sorry.
Okay. What I skipped over were a lot of what I would call kind of standard language.
Yes, it looks
with
very
pilot
familiar.
payments and state police and the like.
Okay.
But the next notable one is E233, which is the mobile wireless, which again comports with a B1100 one-time $10 million section. And a little further, actually further down page 26, you'll see E236.1, which is the sports betting. And that may well be superfluous if there is a separate sports betting bill. If there is not, that language will enable sports betting in Vermont.
So Adam, on the other one, is that the $10 million for cell towers?
Yes, it's a mobile wireless,
Yeah.
but yes, it's predominantly for cell service.
Okay. Great, thank you.
Moving to the 300s, E306.1 and E306.2. That is on page 28 and 29. So there is a healthcare claims tax, which funds the health IT fund, which goes to Vital, Vermont Information Technology Leaders. That too has a sunset. This is pushing out the sunset. So it would enable those funds from the healthcare claims tax to come in and support health IT investments through Vital. So here we're just pushing out that sunset.
So.
Okay.
In E318, which starts on page 30, you'll notice this is the major governor's proposal on childcare.
Right now.
This would, in E318, that would increase, that's on the bottom of page 30 and top of page 31. That would increase the not increase the subsidy, would increase the household income that is eligible for subsidy from 350% of the federal poverty level up to 400% of the federal poverty level. In addition, in 318.1, you see an adjustment to the language, actually a repeal of the language that would govern the amount of subsidy based on the STARS level of the program. We're eliminating that language to focus on household income as opposed to quality or level of STARS program, so that two people with the same household income who send their kids to different programs would get the same subsidy. So that too is part of the governor's overall child care proposal. And I'm sure that DCF will have plenty to say on that.
Okay.
We're just listening now, right?
If you have questions.
It's okay. I mean, I've already got questions. I've already had conversations with DCF on this.
Okay.
Skipping ahead to page 36, it would not be a governor's budget without section E 337. Pardon me, that's page 38.
Page 38.
Oh, page 39. That is the section of the budget that moves the Community High School of Vermont from the general fund corrections department to the education fund.
Yep.
And it actually moves it back to the education fund. So here we are allowing that to happen by changing the statutory language that provides for funding for the Community High School of Vermont from the education fund.
Do you remember when we moved it out of the education fund?
You know, it was probably the early aughts. It wasn't during my period here, but it was a good time ago.
I don't think it's just one way. Yeah, we can find that.
Okay. I knew it was a long time ago, but I didn't know how long.
Moving ahead, E500.1, which is on page 41. It's the bottom of page 40. This is creating a program called the Universal After School and Summer Special Fund. You'll remember that when cannabis was legalized, there's a 14% excise tax, some of which goes to the general fund, some of which goes to support substance use disorder. There's also a 6% sales tax. That 6% sales tax, as all sales tax, will go to the education fund. Here we are directing we are creating a special fund to receive that money in the education fund and devoting it to universal after school and summer programming. So that fund is being set up in section E500.1. In section E602.1, which is at the bottom of page 43, you see the.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
Go ahead, Rep. Mahaly.
Thank you. How much money do you think that is?
Well, there's been all kinds of estimates as to the total amount of cannabis sales in Vermont once the program gets up and running. I think I've seen anywhere from 25 million on the low side to 50 to 55 million on the high side. So, you take 6% of that, and I don't know, I mean, let's just say $50 million. 10% would be 5 million. 5% would be 2.5 million. So let's just say 3 million-ish, something along those lines. But, obviously that will depend very much on total cannabis sales.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And Adam, just 1 second, then Brad Holcomb. Is it some of the cannabis fund is supposed to go to prevention also? So
That's right.
So that's a separate.
That's correct.
A part of the.
Yeah. That was to be funded and will be funded by the portion, 30%, I believe, of the excise tax. There's a 14% excise tax. 30% of that is going to prevention. You'll probably recall elsewhere in this budget, there's an appropriation to prevention because the excise tax is not likely to be sufficient to fund $3 million of prevention, which was legislative will from last year's budget. So we think there'll be some excise tax available for that. And the remainder, I think 1.5 million or so, 1.59 million, we're putting in as a one-time general fund appropriation. But in the future, once again, sales get up steam, it should be, enough to fully fund prevention.
Right. Okay, and Rep. Holcomb had a question.
I just have two questions, actually.
Okay.
One is, did you have any consideration of putting some of these funds or pairing them with the 21C program, which has currently, or last I knew, had more applications than it could afford to fund and some existing administrative capacity?
I did not personally, but that would be more of an AOE question, I'm afraid.
And then in addition, I noticed that you are allowing up to 500,000 for administrative costs, but there's no positions, which basically suggests that your assumption is the management of this will be contracted out. Is that correct?
I believe that's the intention, yes.
So if you are contracting out with a non-government entity, what's your plan for ensuring equitable access, given some of the issues, as the commissioner said, where we are currently funding programs that don't serve kids with disabilities, exclude kids with sundresses, and compare people who are gay and lesbian to people who have practiced criminal behavior? I mean, like, what's your plan here? If you're
that would be a good question for the chair of this advisory commission, which I believe will be the Secretary of Education.
Because this hasn't been created yet.
It hasn't, but this is the language that will.
Right. Okay. So this is probably Rep. Mahali's budget area. So Rep. Holcomb, you can work through him to get the information you need. Okay. Thank you. What else?
There's on the bottom of page 43, you'll remember that one of the initiatives is to reduce CCV, Community College of Vermont, tuition by 50%. You'll notice the language in 602.1 does that and calls for an annual report on the outcomes of that. But that is at 602.1, the 50% tuition reduction.
Okay, and that's one-time money because it's from the 1100.
It is at the moment, yes.
Yeah.
And then E700 is the Clean Heat Homes initiative that A&R is standing up. And that is for weatherization and the like, incentives for weatherization and clean heat homes and the like. A&R is going to grant that to Efficiency Vermont.
To what? I missed.
A&R is going to grant that to Efficiency Vermont, the Vermont BEIC, which is the umbrella body for efficiency.
Yeah, I just couldn't hear you. Okay.
And then the final part of the language that we've already spoken to you about when Nick Kramer and I came in, is the enabling language and defining language for the capital expenditure cash fund. And that is an E1000 and E1000.1.
Okay.
So that's a bit of a whirlwind through the language, but again, that is typical. We typically defer to the agencies and departments of jurisdiction to provide greater explanation. But I think I've pointed out some of the new initiatives in here that either comport with one-time appropriations or changes to base that I think you should be aware of.
Yes, that was a quick romp through the rest of the language. Do people, are there things that are sticking out?
I'm just curious, was there discussion of other needs related to the Vermont State College system? Especially given some of the concerns related to the libraries that we're hearing?
There sure were. I think I would be underestimating if I said there were days of discussions. There were more. There was a lot of discussion on their needs. And
I understand this is your recommendation. Can you help us understand how you landed on this as your recommendation for the state colleges as opposed to some of the other options before you?
Well, keep in mind that one of probably their single most important request, I would argue, was to boost their base funding level up to the New England average, which we agreed to years ago. So there was another $2.5 million in base. Their second request was to boost their, or to kind of finish what was a much larger appropriation over the years for transformational cushion. That amounted to $9 million. I think that was a total over the years of, I want to say $50 million, 40 to 50 million. So we made that last $9 million contribution. That too was based on their request. I believe they had one more request to create a specific program, which we declined, and I don't remember what that program was. It was one of the trade programs, which we declined to fund. But the CCV tuition reduction was something the governor felt very strongly, as did Vermont State Colleges. I mean, they too had to kind of prioritize their own requests. But they, for years, have spoken about the expense of community college of Vermont relative to other community colleges nationally. So that was a request that was an initiative that they were very happy to accept and indeed expand upon. You'll also note that VSAC has a similar program whereby they guarantee free community college tuition to households below up to and equal $75,000 of household income. So there's been a big focus on kind of one of the gateway programs to higher education, the community colleges. So that too. But keep in mind what Vermont State Colleges is doing now is trying to rationalize and become sustainable. I think you'll find that they're, and this is a better question for them, but I think you'll find that part of their reasoning behind the library closures that you mentioned was because they committed and the legislature asked them to save $5 million a year. So they had that commitment, and part of that commitment, I think, is being carried out in various ways. But if you go back to the original legislation, they kind of launched this operational, program to consolidate and the like. Part of that was to have a $5 million savings plan each year, not compounded, but each year. So I think, you'll find that they're listening to session law in that regard. And that's, I'll give them credit. It's not an easy thing to do.
So Rip Mahaly has a question also, Adam. Go ahead, Mark.
Adam, can we go back to 602.1?
You sure can.
So That's on page 43.
Okay, thank you.
I guess I just want to, I've been talking to the folks there and I wanted to get your reaction, if any. You know, their problem with the one-time money is they don't feel that they can reduce tuition with it because they don't want to be in a position of raising tuition back after 2 years. So what they would do is probably use it for scholarship money to scholarship it down. And they're instead proposing to us that they have a lesser amount and make it base so they can actually reduce tuition on a permanent basis. And I guess my question is twofold. One, do you think they could, under this language, scholarship rather than reduce tuition? And the second is, do you have any comment at all on their proposal that a lesser amount going to base tuition by 25%?
We would certainly be open to the conversation. I mean, they would need new language for this. This language not only provides that tuition reduction, but it also focuses on necessary trades that you can see in the language where the state is desperately short. And they have come to us with that suggestion, and we said we'd be happy to talk to them about that. So yes, we're certainly open to it. I would also, again, keep in mind that this also is kind of in the same category as the VSAC proposal that for various households will eliminate tuition requirements. So at some point, you're going to run out of people who qualify.
Right. Yeah.
But, which maybe is a good problem to have, but, we're all kind of focused on trying to provide access. And, obviously we're a little bit more worried about a base commitment only because we're not clear where our base is going in the future years. But we told them that we would be willing to talk to them about that. Sure.
Thank you. By the way, just for the benefit of discussion, the one thing that about their approach to libraries, which somehow really hasn't made it into the public press or discussion, is that they are not firing any librarians. They are keeping their librarians the same and making them available on a 24/7 basis to the librarians, the librarians themselves, to students. And they undertook this because they have, as you know, 5 different locations, and if you count the nursing schools, a dozen more, and they want to make all of the material available to everybody all the time. But the people they're letting go are the people who, manage the stacks and manage the actual physical collection. And they make the point that the only way they can cut $5 million, there's no way to do it unless you raise tuition, which of course we don't want to do. There's no way to do it without losing people or buildings.
Agreed.
Well, thank you. Sorry to.
No, that's all right.
I can't. Yeah, I don't know, Diane. I can't, or Robin. I don't get any. I'm not able to get my. Because the host will not let me in visually, but.
Oh, okay, but we hear you, Lynn. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think Mark Mahaly for clarifying some of the things that they testified to us, but the one program that we did ask for that that Adam referred to was the $700,000 for the restorative justice bachelor's degree, I believe, to expand that at Linden State, the Lemon State campus of Northern Vermont, as something they see as potentially, yeah. That was the only thing, that and the change in the community college. We asked for $6 million for 25% that I think they explained as a base. But the governor recommended $10 million one-time money for 2 years for 50%. But
right.
Thank you.
Are there other questions?
Yes.
I'm just curious because we know we have a critical shortage of nurses. And one of the things the state colleges also talked about was cohorts around nurse preparation. I wondered if they brought that to the administration as well.
I don't think they did. Not to say that, again, they didn't want it, but I don't think they brought that to us specifically.
It is under discussion just a little bit in that there was, Adam, there was a program, a federally funded program aimed at those critical, the critical professions, including nursing, mental health, childcare, and the money's gone, but it was very successful. And so we're just talking about it. That's all. I just wanted to alert you.
Thank you. Well, thank you,
Any other
everyone.
questions on the language for Adam while we have him? Well, we may have more as we go along, but at least we've now gotten through this. We appreciate you coming in, zooming in to talk to us.
You guys know where to find me.
We do, and you know where to find us. Stay well, Adam. Thank you.
All right, take care.
Take care. So committee, I'm just going to say what we've got online and then we'll go. So we are done for the day with being live on Zoom. The Committee of Conference is meeting in 8 minutes. That's good timing. And we meet again here tomorrow at 9. We'll check in. 9, I know it's late. Sleep in. And we'll check in and then we'll go from there. But so be here tomorrow.
We might be meeting in the morning before that.
Yeah. And if you have other meetings with your budget buddies or whatever, go ahead and do those. But otherwise, we'll be here at 9 tomorrow morning. And I think that's it for today.